We are live with broadcasting this with Pacific Coast TV. Those who wish to speak this evening may, during the time of general comment or the specific item agenda comment, 3 minutes will be given, and there'll be a 3-minute timer. I would now like to hand it over to Chair Hernandez to start the order and pledge allegiance.
I open the Planning Commission meeting, and we'd like to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance, please.
Flags.
Pledge to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Bridget, could we please get a roll call?
Yes, and before we do that, I just have a little bit of a teleconferencing procedure that we need to go through, so it's just a tad lengthy. So prior to roll call, I'd like to make it clear for the record of this meeting that it should reflect in the minutes that at least a portion of this Planning Commission meeting is conducted in pursuant of the California Government Code 54953B, that the Planning Commissioner Jonas is, see the agenda, she is at the Hyatt Regency in Orange at a Planning Commission conference. Commissioner Jonas is participating by Zoom via speaker and phone, video. In ordinance with the Brown Act, each teleconference location has been identified in a notice and agenda for the meeting. She has posted it at the location. I am going to ask Commissioner Jonas to respond to the following questions. She can unmute. Okay, can you hear me well?
Yes, yes, I can.
Were you were you able to hear the proceedings up until right now?
Yes.
Do you have a copy of the agenda for this meeting?
Yes.
Have you posted the agenda at the location where you were at?
Yes.
Is your location reasonably accessible to the public and such that any member of the public could participate in the teleconference from your location if he or she wished to do so?
Yes.
And is there any member of the public there with you?
No.
And then that leads me to, let's see. I would now like to ask any member of the commission to speak up at this time if you cannot hear Commissioner Jonas clearly. Seeing that you all can. Hearing that there's no comments, the record should reflect that all commissioner members that are present have indicated that they were able to hear Commissioner Jonas. I would next request that the commissioner speak up if he or she has any reason to believe, based on the voice recognition and or video, or otherwise that the person representing he or she self is not truly Commissioner Jonas. She's this box here. I would now like to advise the commission that any votes taken during the teleconference portion of this meeting shall be taken by a roll call. Okay, so I will proceed now with a roll call.
Thank you.
Yes.
And, just to affirm that does not appear to be AI speaking to us.
Okay. Okay, so going forward here, we have Commissioner Reddick.
I'm here.
Commissioner Jonas.
I'm here.
Commissioner Gorn.
Here.
Vice Chair Gossett.
Here.
And Chair Hernandez.
I am present.
Great. All commissioners are present here.
Thank you, Bridget. I think the next, unless I've missed something, the next item is the approval of minutes.
That's correct.
For the meeting of February 28th, 2023. Does anybody have any comments on the minutes? Commissioner Jonas, do you have any comments on I can't see your head because it's very small.
Okay.
No, I do not.
Okay, can I get a motion then?
So moved that we approve the minutes from our last planning commission meeting.
Okay.
Can I get a second?
I second it.
All in favor? Oh, actually, we need to do a roll call vote.
Yes. Commissioner Reddick,
Yes.
Commissioner Jonas,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorn,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gossett,
Yes.
and Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Excellent. Now we're going to close that, and the next portion of the meeting is public comment. For those of you who are in the public or who are attending via Zoom, this is your opportunity to speak on any item that is not on the agenda. And as Bridget indicated earlier, you typically have 3 minutes to comment. Does anybody who is present today wish to speak during public forum, public comment? Not seeing anyone come to attention or come to the podium. Is there anyone, Bridget, who would like to speak online?
I am seeing no one. No one's raising their hand.
Okay, we will close public comment. Next item is item 1A. We have public hearing items. So 1A is the first item, which is a new single-family residence. Doug, are you going to get us started here?
Yes.
Excellent.
For the record, I'm Doug Garrison, Senior Planner, City of Half Moon Bay. This is a project for a single-family residence, 575 Seymour. Typically, a new home would be subject to a community development director hearing. This one fronts also onto Highway 1, which is why it's at the Planning Commission this evening. So here's the location. Do note that it's a little bit of a odd-shaped lot. I'll get into this a little bit further on, but originally there were about 10 small lots here, starting at that building on the left side there, which was originally a residence, converted to a church, and then converted back to a residence. And when Caltrans widened their right-of-way, they ate up one and a portion of those lots. And so that shape of the lot made it a little bit challenging on the design end, but I think it's been addressed handily through our design process. There's a little bit of a tortured trail on this one. As I mentioned, when the owners bought this property, they thought they were buying 10 small lots and were hoping to merge some lots and come up with a couple of decent sized lots. And those 10 lots go back to, I think, the 1906 subdivision map. And through some arcane California law, it turns out if all of those lots were sold together, as opposed to separately, it's actually one legal lot. So it required a parcel map to subdivide it into 3 lots. One is where that church building is. It's now a house. So 2 new lots. And frequently we exempt from CEQA these kinds of small subdivisions. It didn't quite work on this one. The exemption that we used for that mixed-use building on Main and Kelly, that whole lot used to have a gas station. It's been scraped clean, and we could make the findings. This one, there wasn't a lot of potential for biological impacts, but some, and so it didn't qualify for an exemption. So we prepared a biological report. We prepared an initial study, mitigated declaration. And I want to just make it clear the staff report frequently references that parcel map, but we're not taking any action on that tonight. That was approved in 2020. It's been recorded. But there are some conditions of approval and some mitigation measures from that parcel map that carry through to the construction of the house. There were a couple of other requirements. They're not CEQA related, but for houses that front onto Highway 1, our noise element of the general plan has some standards. So we did require a sound study to show they could meet those. That was attached to your staff report. Our land use plan requires that you retire one lot for each new lot you create, which is a little counterintuitive since at one point it was 10 lots and now it's 3 lots, but they still had to retire 2 lots. They've done that. They purchased 2 lots in a PD area. I think they turned them over to Coast Site Land Trust, but they've submitted the grant deeds to us, and that's done. The other thing, there is active farming across Seymour Street, and we did require that they record a right to farm deed restriction on these lots. It's fairly common in agricultural areas, and essentially says if you buy this property, you promise not to complain about farm, dust, noise, that kind of stuff. And so they've complied with all of those requirements. So the key issues here that we walked through were environmental resources, Highway 1 noise, visual resources, neighborhood compatibility, and land use plans and zoning conformance. And just to kind of put things in perspective, it's a habitat map from our land use plan. And you can see the property up here in the corner. This amber color is the area that's been farmed. And we really want to change. That dark blue rectangle, that's an old agricultural pond. The lighter blue are wetlands. There's also that smaller dark blue body on the upper part. That's where there's a stormwater retention basin there where water from Magnolia Street and Seymour goes in there and it gets metered out, hopefully, to the Seymour ditch. And across the street, that's the Ford dealership. That green area at the top, those are the eucalyptus trees on Magnolia Street. From our land use plan, ESHA maps, that sort of thing, the red dots are places where they have cited California red-legged frog. The one kind of in the center of the wave crest there is not too far from that agricultural pond. And the one a little bit further north is actually pretty close to that stormwater retention basin. So those are areas that it makes sense that there would be some. The amber colored are trees where they have seen monarch winter butterflies overwintering. And the magenta purple, that whole area is classified as potential ESHA, primarily is winter foraging for raptors, and also there could be California red-legged frogs and San Francisco garter snakes. Upland area, it's probably not year-round, but they could be there. Visual resources are always a big issue, especially close to Highway 1. This building's about 80 feet away from the highway, also Naomi Patridge Trail. We did require story poles be installed, and for the same reason that we're meeting in the library, the story poles are not up today. They blew down last Tuesday. The applicant did make a good faith effort to get them back up later in the week, and it just didn't work. We do have some photographs from Monday before they blew down, and that's about the best we can do on this one. Other features in the plans, you'll note there's a manufacturer's cut sheet sample for the exterior lighting. They're pretty subtle, they're downward directed, they're shielded. We don't anticipate a lot of glare and bright lights here. The colors are pretty muted. The scale, as I note in the report, could be substantially larger per zoning. It's a 10,000 square foot lot. The building footprint's about 2,500 square feet. It could be 3,500. Two-story building could have 5,000 square feet. It's closer to 3,500. And so that scale helps with the visual massing of the building. And we did a couple of rounds with the Architectural Advisory Committee, and quite a bit of building articulation has been built into this to just reduce the visual massing of it. Here's the story poles in better days from Seymour Street, looking sort of northwest. You can see that two-story house in the background. That's one of the newer houses on Magnolia that was constructed over there. The building going down Seymour, that's the old church. It's a single-story house. And then those are large eucalyptus trees that are left there. This was from up on Highway 1. It's about where the Naomi Patridge Trail would connect across Seymour there. Because of all the eucalyptus trees and some of the buildings on Magnolia, the project really won't be very visible from Highway 1 for traffic going south. It will be more for northbound traffic and people on the Naomi Patridge Trail. And this gives a pretty good idea of the scale of the building with the trees in the background and the other houses behind there. Is subject to design review. This was quite a bit of back and forth. At the staff level, we had a lot of comments on the initial design. We took it to the Architectural Advisory Committee. They had some pretty substantial comments and asked that it be returned to them. The plans were substantially revised in response to all those comments. A little bit more variety in the building materials, totally different roof lines. They've added a balcony to the front, additional windows, and changed the landscaping a fair amount. We went back in February to the AAC. They were pleased with these plans, favorable comments on it. Their only the nitpicky thing was to add a little more landscaping to the front yard, and that's been incorporated in these plans that you have today. So again, you can see how the building, it steps back from the street, particularly the second story, reduces the visual mass of the building from the street frontage. It gives it nice articulation. The balcony on the second floor gives it some visual interest, fairly muted colors. This one's a little bit hard to read on the screen, but I just wanted to point out that because of that odd-shaped lot, at the very front, there's about a 25-foot side yard setback on the side facing the highway. And we treat this as a corner lot, even though it's separated from the highway by 80 feet or so. So it's required to have a little bit bigger side yard setback of 15 feet as opposed to 5 feet for most houses. And you can see how the house steps back as it moves back. And so it maintains a minimum 15-foot setback all the way to the rear of the house. And also, if you note, those are all would be new trees planted along that property line. There'd also be a solid wood fence that would limit visual effects from Highway 1 and the Naomi Patridge. The noise study, the way our general plan is written, establishes standard exterior noise of 60 dB, see now an interior 40 dB, with modern construction just meeting the Title 24 energy efficiency standards. Pretty much everybody can meet the interior noise. The exterior is difficult. And so those amber triangles, they hired an acoustical sound engineer. He went out there and took measurements and measured 57 dB at this house and a little bit less at the proposed house next door. And he did note that that's just a big vacant field when you put up the buildings and the fence. It would probably drop another 3 to 5 dB. So with that extra margin of error, it's well within our standard. And I would note that when we have an exterior noise standard, it's not for the entire yard. It's for designated areas like decks, patios, where people would congregate and socialize. This one's nice in that it meets all of our zoning requirements, which seems kind of rare sometimes. Meets all it's zoned for residential. There's no variances requested. It's well below the maximum lot coverage and floor area. Meets the daylight plane requirements. Meets all the side setbacks. So we did do our regular noticing, published in the newspaper, as well as mailing to the neighbors, posted the site. I've not received any comments on this to date. And so staff's recommending that the Planning Commission find that the project is exempt from additional environmental review and approve the coastal development permit and design review. That concludes my presentation, and I'm available for any questions.
Thank you for the presentation, Doug. Since we're finding our legs and getting back to these in-person meetings, from the last time we had an in-person meeting, we've changed the format a little bit. And what we do now, I'm going to retain what we've been doing, which is we're going to open it up for public comments at this point. So if anybody does have a public comment, we'll take those now. And the applicant is welcome, and the representatives are also welcome to speak after we've taken before or after we've taken public comment, and then we'll come back for clarifying questions with the Planning Commission. Does anybody have any comments on this project? Who is in attendance? I'm not seeing anybody raise their hands to speak. Do we have anybody online who would like to speak?
I have no one raising their hand.
Okay. I'm going to bring it back to the plan. Then I'm going to close public comment, and I'm going to bring it back to the Planning Commission for clarifying questions. And I had one clarifying question I just wanted to start with. Is there any issue with the story poles being blown down?
I would defer to legal counsel on that. We have City Council by resolution adopted our story pole policy. They put them up, they're supposed to be up for 6 days prior to the hearing. They would have actually been more than that if they had stayed up. Whether it doesn't expressly say anything about natural disasters, I don't know if Jill or the city attorney has any input.
The weather's been extraordinary, so I'll maybe give Winter, if you want to, you need a minute to mull that, or
That would be great. I just want to look up the policy and I can get back to you. But I know we've had other issues before where, for other reasons, it may not have been physically possible to do the story polls. For example, when we've had like cell towers and things like that, it's just not possible to do it. So obviously, if you think that that's necessary, we can talk about it in terms of having public involvement and engagement and understanding of the impacts. But I know we've had other circumstances where it just hasn't been possible. But let me take a look at the policy and see if I can give you a more legal response as opposed to a pragmatic one.
thank you. Are there any other clarifying questions? Yes.
Doug, there's a 15-foot setback on the east side of this, but only a 5-foot on the west side. Is that how it works?
Yes, for corner lots, the side that faces a street is 15 feet by our zoning code. Otherwise, the side yard setbacks are 5 feet. So in this case, it's a little bit counterintuitive since it's 80 feet to the highway, but they've met all the requirements.
sorry, I'm getting used to this. On page 11 of the packet, they talked about landscaping around the fence to reduce the visual impact from Highway 1 and mentioned trees at the side of the fence and behind the house. And are we prescriptive about the type of trees? Are you aware or?
Yes. Actually, we've gone through a few different species of trees. One good thing about our architectural advisory committee is that there is a very experienced landscape architect who lives here and works locally. He had some concerns about the trees originally proposed, that he just didn't think they would thrive without a lot of additional water. And so narrowed it down to some other evergreen trees that would thrive there with minimal water, certainly after the first few years, and they would provide good screening. And the species is listed on the landscaping plan. It's some fern,
Okay.
pine, I mean, it's there.
Okay. I guess another question would be, are they conifer type trees or? I'm sorry, I didn't see the landscape.
They are evergreens. I don't know if they qualify as conifers.
Okay. No.
Through the chair,
Yes, please.
I have a little bit more of a response for you, which is that the policy about story poles does authorize the planning director to waive them if having the story poles would be impracticable. So I just communicated with community development director Edith, and she thought that it would be wise to waive it given the circumstances of the high winds. And that fact that we do have some visual representation of the story poles, including the image that Doug put in the presentation, and there are a couple other in hard copy if you'd like to see them.
Thank you. And sorry for not asking that question earlier today, Jill. Apologize. Okay, Commissioner Jonas, do you have any clarifying questions?
No, I do not.
I have a couple of quick questions. One was, what was the nature of the feedback on the balcony? Was it add one, make it bigger, make it smaller?
It was add one. It was my idea because I'm from New Orleans and I like balconies. But the general comments from the Architectural Advisory Committee was that it was a little bland. It was sort of wide expanses of stucco with not a lot of visual interest, and that it should have some additional windows, some architectural details that would, make it look a little bit smaller, as well as just enhance the visual interest.
Very good. I noticed on the landscaping plan, the area where the pavers start, you start to see a change in elevation. Sort of it starts to go downhill pretty quickly. It seems like there's an opportunity for pooling of water where the pavers are in the backyard, and I just call it out. Like, if the landscape architect's present, have they thought about how? Is there anything besides the drainage in the front of the yard, like a French drain or something, like classic French drain or something like that, to help move water as it comes off of Highway 1? Because if it was my lot, I'd be a little concerned about a big old pool of water showing up right where the pavers are and making it a muddy pit.
We do have a stormwater plan that's been prepared. Some of this goes back to the parcel map. They required that most of the stormwater be retained on these sites. In particular, we've had bad erosion problems at Seymour Ditch, and these are big lots, and so there's room to do that. And so there is a storm drainage plan that's been provided by an engineer. There is an existing sort of retention basin that water from the church house goes into. That's going to have to be upgraded based on some comments from our engineering staff. And the other houses, when they're built, will tie into that also. As far as specifically the pavers, which part of the lot are you discussing? Where the driveway is?
Sorry, I'm looking at the backyard where the 82-foot elevation hits. I think it's 83 or 80. You can see that line going through the backyard. So you already have a stormwater plan. I guess the question would be something worth looking at as it moves to implementation.
Okay.
And there's already a plan to upgrade the stormwater retention. So.
Comment noted, the applicant may have some further clarification on that since she's been working with their engineers on this.
Those are all of my clarifying questions. Anybody else?
Sure. Commissioner Jonas has a couple of minutes.
Commissioner Jonas?
Yes, sorry, I didn't have this question until you asked the question about the stormwater runoff and the possible ponding. It's my understanding that the inspection team at the city at the time of approvals will also inspect the site to ensure that all the drainage requirements that are conditioned for the property are met, so that such things don't happen on the property and or that flow of water doesn't enter into the public right-of-ways. Could somebody clarify that for me, please?
Well, city staff will be inspecting a variety of things. Our engineering staff, their focus is primarily on stormwater running off of the property into the city streets or city stormwater systems. So that's their focus. The building inspector will inspect that everything's been constructed to code and to the approved building permit plans as far as sizing of the different drainage elements, the slope, that sort of thing. And that's an ongoing process through the building permit phase. I hope that answers your question.
Commissioner Jonas, are you good?
I think she is.
You're on mute. I can't see your head nodding or shaking.
She gave a thumbs up.
Okay, great. Thank you. Any other clarifying questions? And are there any other comments from the public or people who've raised their hands and wish to speak? I know we've already closed public comment, but we're giving a little bit of latitude as our first in-person meeting.
Yeah, there's no one. We do have a few people in Zoom, but there's no one raising their hands.
Very good. Okay, I'd like to move it back to the Planning Commission for our discussion. Commissioner Reddick.
Thank you, Chair. And as Mr. Garrison recapped, I know this has been a long process, but I think I feel very happy about everything that you brought to us tonight. So kudos for you to working so effectively with the applicant and the team. It seems to me to be a very strong and professional design that will fit in very well there. I agree with you about the scale of the building working very well to not present a massing that is that would be less attractive than what we have there. I did actually see the story poles the other day. A few of them are still in place, but the photos that you presented are a much more effective way for people to get it. But no place walking around there did I have any quarrel with their impact on the visual environment. I like the fact that you've worked on the in service of the bio goals to get the appropriate construction mitigation efforts included there, and there's no request for variances, So it's hard not to like it. It occurs to me that this is another example of many recently where the Architectural Advisory Committee process has worked well for us, and we've gotten good judgment and good input and really constructive teamwork from, I think, staff and the AAC and the applicant. So I commend the members of the AAC who I think have been consistent through the last 3 or 4 years, and I commend Director Ekus for setting it up in the first place. I think that's all that I have. I support this project.
Commissioner Gorn?
Well, I also saw the story poles before they went down. Usually the pictures always look better than the actual story poles when you go out there, but in this case I felt like it was the other way around. I felt like that maybe the pictures are taken from low down or whatever, but there seemed to be very little visual impact from the trail or from the highway. And so this is a small house on a big lot, and it looks really nice. I don't have questions.
Commissioner Gossett?
I concur with my fellow commissioners. I'm actually relieved that we have the AAC because they do such a nice job of helping bring forth really nice projects that will complement the existing housing in the community. So I also support this project.
Commissioner Jonas?
I have no additional comments other than to say that I too did see the story poles, and I don't have any issue with this project.
Very good. I am very supportive of the project and would like to also extend my kudos to the Architectural Advisory Committee and the process they went through. I know it's not always easy for the applicant to have to go back and forth, but I think the outcome is a very pleasing project, and it meets the criteria we've established, and there's no variances. The one thing living in that neighborhood, what I've come to appreciate are the opportunities to get views of to the south and to the west. It's very unique. And so I'd lean into the balcony as much as you can. And if you can work with city staff to, make it a little larger or a little more usable, I'd really think about how you're going to enjoy that space, because it's the one thing I'd change about my project all these years later is I would have put on a southwestern facing balcony when I built my house. So I'm supportive of this project, and I'm happy to go ahead and put this to a voice vote. Roll call vote, sorry.
Okay. Do we need a motion and a second, please?
Can I get a motion?
I move that the commission find the project exempt from additional environmental review and that it complies with the requirements of the previously adopted ISM&D, etc., and that we approve the resolution at hand.
Can I get a second?
Sure, I'll second.
Duly noted.
Commissioner, roll call is Commissioner Reddick, Commissioner Jonas,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorn,
Yes.
Vice Chair Gossett,
Yes.
and Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion approved.
Project's approved.
Project approved.
All right. Moving on to the next. Congratulations on your project. Okay, the next item we have is on the agenda is item 1B, which is Measure D ranking ratification. And Scott, are you going to lead us on this one?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair, and members of the Planning Commission. Nice to see everyone in person after so many years of virtual meetings. It seems like it's been a long time. So yeah, this item involves the ranking ratification for the 2023 Measure D submittals. I'll give a brief PowerPoint presentation. This slide gives an overview of the presentation. I'll give a little background and kind of the submittal process that we went through, review process once we received the submittals, and kind of some next steps. Now, Measure D, a little background, was approved by ballot and then codified in our zoning and subdivision ordinance, which is within our implementation plan for our local coastal program. And a little bit on purpose of Measure D. Now, the ballot measure itself stated that the purposes of this ballot measure are to protect the public health, safety, and welfare of the residents of Half Moon Bay, and to provide for development which is orderly, sustainable, and fiscally responsible, to respond to the worsening traffic situation, and to protect the city's unique scenic and rural coastal character by managing the rate, location, and density of residential development. Now, the subdivision ordinance also has a section that states that the purpose of Measure D is to control the rate and quality of development in the city on an annual basis.
Hang on one second. We seem to have a little background noise. Bridget, can you mute whoever that is? Thank you. Sorry, Scott. Please continue.
Not a problem. So just in summary, kind of more the mechanics of it, it basically boils down to a 1% cap on population increase by limiting new dwelling units in the city, and then an additional 0.5% bonus downtown. Now, a little bit about the scoring criteria. The checklists that are included with the application and that were included with the ballot measure are based on sort of 2008-ish green building checklists that came out around then. You know, several different varieties. Our Measure D checklist is based on Build a Green checklist of 2008, and you know, back in 2008, we didn't fully anticipate the sort of the high demand that we're experiencing with accessory dwelling units and junior accessory dwelling units, otherwise known as ADUs and JADUs. And so 2021 and 22, the Planning Commission conducted ratification hearings such as this one. And we are experiencing a little less demand than the previous years. And then in 2020, the Planning Commission, we were close to conducting a ratification hearing, but a withdrawal. We ended up holding a study session instead and gaining feedback from from the Planning Commission on sort of some, you know, sort of interpretations on some of the criteria associated with the checklist. So that was back in 2020, and that was very helpful. That's really helped us in the scoring process that we've been using now for 3 years now. And attachment 2 of the staff report included the interpretations that were sort of crafted by the Planning Commission and staff back in 2020. Now, as far as the submittals for 2023, 45 allocations are available downtown and 22 outside of downtown. And we take in the applications in for the month of January. So this past January, we received 45 for downtown, and those have all been issued. That included a 10 new units conversion of an existing second-story bed and breakfast at the Bala House, 1 ADU, a duplex with ADUs, a new house with an ADU, and then a combination of affordable housing city project units. As far as outside of downtown, we received 28 requests for allocations, but only 22 available. Included 2 standalone single-family dwellings, 8 single-family dwellings with ADUs, and then 10 ADUs for new on existing houses. Now, as I mentioned earlier, the 2023 submittals are slightly down from 2022. We had somewhere around in the low 40s last year. This year we're at 28. So we are seeing a little bit of a decrease in demand. So the review process itself, we always get questions, and we do as much as we can as far as meeting with our applicants to answer questions that they may have about the checklist, and doing whatever we can to help folks gain as many points as possible. And we certainly did that this year. And after January, the other kind of key thing with the scoring is to be consistent with all our applicants and review the checklists the same for everyone. And then once completed, we share our results with our applicants. Whoever wishes to see our results, we reach out to all our applicants, especially with the folks that are scored lower, and then we re-review our checklists and our scoring to make for certain that we haven't missed anything and that we're scoring everything consistently. Now this slide shows the the downtown recommendations. The top scoring submittals included 6 single-family dwellings with ADUs, and then 10 ADUs were existing dwelling units, equaling 22 allocations for outside of downtown. And then this slide includes the recommendations for deferrals outside of downtown, so the 6 remaining units that were requested. And Exhibit A of that was attached to the resolution gives you a summary of the scoring that took place. Now, the recommendations for deferral outside of downtown include 2 single-family houses without ADUs, and then 2 that include, for a total of 6 allocations. Now, after this was finalized, like I mentioned, I did reach out to the applicants that were recommending for deferral, and we did receive 1 letter from them, and that was transmitted to the Planning Commission last week. The letter had some suggestions about possible future changes to Measure D, and that was also posted on our website. A little hard to see on the screen here, but this is a sort of a snapshot of Exhibit A that was attached to the staff report showing the the recommendations. We also transmitted 1 additional memorandum to the Planning Commission late this afternoon that noted a slight typo in Exhibit A where 2 of the categories were noted a different number than actually what they were scoring. That didn't affect the total score, and so the recommendations are still the same. But I wanted to take note of that. And the memorandum also had some more background information for the Planning Commission on the process that we went through to score all the submittals. Now, a few takeaway notes. Standalone single-family dwellings certainly didn't score as well as new starts with ADUs, and that's as you go through the checklist, you'll see that there are more points available for projects with ADUs. Higher density, including with ADUs and walkability, improves scoring, as well as avoiding variances and exceptions. Now, one other thing, projects that are potentially within proximity of sensitive habitat, it does make sense to conduct some preliminary biological review to get a sense of what habitat is around. Additional points are available depending on what habitat may exist in the area. Now, as far as next steps, the Planning Commission decision is final unless appealed to the city council, and there is a 10 calendar day appeal period following any decision of the planning commission. No transfers are available this year. Any unused base allocations downtown, our city council does have the discretion to transfer some of the base allocation units to outside of downtown. Since all the downtown units have been issued, that won't be an option this September. And the next application window for Measure D is in 2024. So you have a recommendation, and then, as we've talked about, we've changed our format a little bit. We're going to ask for public comment before clarifying questions, and I recommend that you do so. That concludes my presentation.
Thank you, Scott. That was the most illuminating discussion you could have on what could be a very dry subject. I'm sure there is some public feedback, so I would like to open up for public comment for anybody who is in attendance first. If anybody would like to speak, I will give you an opportunity to come to the podium. Not seeing anyone rushing to the front of the room. We will see if there's anybody from the public who's attending online who would like to make a comment.
I have 3 in attendee, and I don't have anyone raising their hand currently.
Well, I've done 3 Mississippis in my head, and I'm going to go ahead and close public comment. And I'm going to bring it back to the Planning Commission for clarifying questions. Commissioner Ruddick.
Thank you for that, Scott. Theoretically, regarding the September transfers, theoretically, is it possible that some scenario could take place where downtown allocations are returned, the applicant changes its mind after having received an allocation, and these might, after all, become available for outside of downtown later this year?
Not to my knowledge. To my knowledge, the code doesn't allow for that. If they've all been issued. So.
Vice Chair Gossett. Commissioner Jonas.
I don't have any specific questions right now. All of my questions were answered fairly well by Scott today. Thank you, Scott, for addressing my, 13, 14, 15 questions. I can't count right now, but and thank you very much for also producing the for the Planning Commission the rating sheets, because that is helpful for me, at least in my review. Had I had that, probably I wouldn't have had all my 15 questions to you. So thank you very much, and my questions have been answered.
Oh, we have a clarifying question.
So, Scott, just to be clear, there's one of the things that stands out on the scorecard is of the 4 houses that did not get approved, did not get an allocation. The Chesterfield house had an extremely low landscaping score. They're all like 32. Pretty much everyone is 32, but they were 12. Maybe you could explain why that is.
Yes, part of the reason for that was they did not submit plans, although you're not required to at this point. They elected to not submit plans, and so we basically went off of the items that they selected on their checklist. And so there wasn't much variability as far as additional items that they qualified for, because we had nothing to check against. So
Thank you. I just wanted to make it clear because it stood out to you.
When can people submit an application for Measure D? When could they submit it for this year?
just in January. So I believe it was the 2nd.
And at the time that process was open, was the criteria published and available to members of the public?
Yes, absolutely, on our website and as well as available at City Hall.
And did that criteria change at all during the scoring process?
No.
And this is the same scoring process we've had in place for a couple of years?
Correct, and the same interpretations as when we held the study session back in 2020.
And for the 4 applicants who are taking it, who are getting a deferral for a Measure D, did city staff review the plans with them and provide guidance on how the scoring works and what the rules are and what they could have done to improve their project?
Yes, and some of our applicants elected to just over email and telephone and did not come into City Hall, but we always offer that as an option. So,
okay. And then there's one project that stands out at the top of the list. Could you, for members of the public, just clarify what made that one project jump to the top of the list with such a different score from everybody else?
yes, the top scoring project is on Alameda, and the applicant has committed to a deed restricted affordable housing unit, which is the on the checklist. There's 35 points available, and they've submitted in writing that they're committed to the deed restricted affordable housing unit, and so that'll be a nice thing for our Miramar neighborhood. So,
and if they get the bonus points for being number one and they choose not to rent out the room, what happens then? Is there any? Do they have to make this unit available?
yes, they do. So,
And that'll be recorded with the deed restriction.
correct, for yes, a certain amount of time. So,
Great. Excellent. No further clarifying questions. Anyone else?
I do, based on that question asked Rick. So if a deed restriction, would you also include condition of approval that they comply with the deed restriction and enforce the deed restriction? Does that occur?
yes, absolutely. So this will be noted on the Measure D certificate that's issued, as well as the once a coastal development permit application is submitted, and any approval will have a condition of approval requiring the deed restriction prior to building permit issuance, and then they'll be subject to enforcement. So,
Thank you.
Excellent. I have no other clarifying questions. And looking at my fellow commissioners, I don't see anyone else giving me the knowing look. So I think
I think Commissioner Jonas might want to speak.
Oh, Commissioner Jonas?
Yes. As far as the deed restriction, how many years is that?
let's see, I believe it's 55 years.
And then what does the enforcement look like?
That's a good question. I may defer to Community Development Director Ekus on this one.
Thanks for that question. The enforcement is going to require annual monitoring, and this is something that the applicant will need to agree to. It will be term in an affordable housing agreement, so this is beyond a deed restriction. We will also have an agreement with the city that puts forth the terms for how this restriction is enacted. So this is where incomes are going to be checked every year. It's something that either city staff or a contractor to the city will do. It's only one unit, so this will not be a significant cost burden for that. I hope that fleshes out your question on that, but at least once a year it will be checked on.
I do have a follow-up question. If with the deed restriction, I understand that will be an enforcement portion of it, and the staff will. It's a self-compliant type of a compliance, where the owner would have to report to you who their property lease holder is, and will there be conditions in this deed restriction regarding potential future sales? Does the sale of a home nullify any of the deed restrictions, or does this go on for the whole 55 years? And how is that recorded in such a way that a future homeowner knows that, and that the realtor knows to disclose that information?
Yes, excellent question. The deed restriction will run with the term of the restriction and is not nullified by any change in ownership or financing or anything else. It will apply to the property regardless of ownership. And this is part of the city's standard language in our affordable housing agreements. This is very common.
Thank you.
All right, I'd like to bring it back to the Planning Commission for discussion. Commissioner Jonas, I'll start with you.
I have no additional comments. I want to thank Scott for taking time to answer my questions and clarifying a lot of the concerns I had. So thank you very much, Scott.
Commissioner Reddick.
Thank you. Every year I'm impressed with the hard work that staff puts into this. It can't be a very fun process for the applicants and the staff and everyone who's involved in it. But you folks do, I think, a very good job of making this completely transparent, going the extra mile to help people understand the process, help the, folks who unfortunately don't make the grade this year, to give them as clear a path forward to make that happen in the future as possible. So I commend you for that. I know it's hard work, but it's super important to the folks who are trying to build here. So please keep up the good work, and thanks for all this hard work.
I also feel for anyone who's applying and not able to get one of these allocations. But I also do know that staff feels the same way, and they really, I've seen them try to work with people to improve those scores. So I also think with 73 allocations requested and 63 are approved, that's still a very good number. So doesn't feel good for the 4 others, but it seems like this process is working.
Vice Chair Hassett.
Thank you. I don't have much to say. I just wanted to thank you for providing the additional information about the downtown allocations. That was new this year, and I appreciate you providing that. And I feel the same way that Commissioner Gorn just mentioned. I hope that next year these applicants can come forward and hopefully do better with their projects. And thank you.
I also just want to commend city staff for the process they've gone through, and the outcome is consistent with my understanding of the intent of Measure D, and then the direction we've also gotten from City Council in terms of prioritization. So, and this meets consistent with all of our requirements under our land use plan. So, thank you for all the work that's gone into this and the diligence. Okay. So I need to adopt a resolution here. So can I get a motion?
I'm sorry. I had such good notes. I move that the Planning Commission adopt the resolution at hand ratifying the January 2023 Measure D allocations.
Second.
Yes. Can I get a second? I have a resolution and a second. Can we, since we have an
Yes.
online attendee, can we get a roll call vote, please?
Yes. Commissioner Reddick, Commissioner Jonas,
Yes.
Commissioner Gorin,
Yes, please.
Vice Chair Gossett,
Yes.
and Chair Hernandez.
Yes.
Motion approved. As read.
Okay, those are all of the items on our agenda for hearings. We have the director's report is the next item on the agenda. Jill, would you take us away here?
Certainly, thank you. And I just wanted to take a moment to reflect on the fact that 3 years ago, our very first Zoom meeting was a Measure D ratification item. It was the one that Scott referred to that had turned into a study session. So we have come full circle with Measure D and our Zoom lifestyle. And we're very happy to be back and to see you all tonight. The rest of this will be brief. Just a reminder, Form 700s are due April 1st. Planning Commission meeting forecast. Your next meeting is April 25th. There is a project at 8 Jenna Lane. It's a single family home and an accessory dwelling unit. It is Scott's project, and that will be coming before you. We may also have a presentation about our vehicle miles traveled, or VMT, policy work that's been going on. And I think you'll enjoy seeing where that's going. May 23rd, the East Side Parallel Trail segment between Murata Road to Rocket Farms. That's a gap in the trail on the east side. That will be coming before you. Bridget sent an email to you today that the initial study and mitigated negative declaration has been posted to the city's website. We will be filing the appropriate documents with the county tomorrow, and Bridget will also make sure to email our Planning Commission constant contact list, which is over 800 email recipients. So we try to get these documents well known in advance because they're long, and if you have time, it's always a good idea to get a little jump start on it, because it's going to I understand it's always a little awkward to get the CEQA document before you have the staff report, but I think the project description will do more than enough to get you acquainted with what this is about. Staff is furiously completing our public draft housing element. We are behind, but we're making time, and it will be circulated for public comments soon. We will be looking for some kind of a session with you to go over it during that public comment period, and keep you posted on that, understanding that maybe your Tuesdays, the earlier Tuesday of the month might work for you. Not sure yet, but we'll follow up when we have a good timeline around that. I think the last thing is just there's a director admin decision scheduled for April 5th, and it is an addition. It's at 551 Spindrift, and it does not require a hearing. It is not in the appeals jurisdiction. It's very straightforward that we are doing our notifications around that addition. And that's all I have. I don't know if staff has anything else. And we think we're going to be back in the Adcock. Oh, you liked it in here. All right. We will probably be back in the Ted Adcock Community Center for your next meeting in April. And Bridget pulled all of this together with our PCTV folks, our tech folks. She was really committed to trying to maintain the standard of what we were trying to set up over at the Adcock with hybrid meetings, and making sure that Commissioner Jonas could participate as she has tonight, and really just appreciate again everything that Bridget does. So thank you for organizing all of that.
It was, yeah. No, Nate, I think it went down fairly well for our first gig that got moved. So I don't know if you mentioned the AAC, but the AAC meeting is now going to be the second Thursday of each month. It was the fourth, but with just conflicting schedules and PC and everything else, it was a lot to do during that end of the month. So it will be on April 13th. And we have one item. And then the locations to be determined. We're going to try to get the EOC. We found out that the library doesn't open until 10 in the morning, and we have 9 o'clock meeting. So we want to make sure that the public can come in, and we don't invite others into the library portion. So we're going to work that out this week and have an agenda posted here soon.
Very good. I'd like to open it up for Planning Commission communications. Commissioner Reddick.
One brief observation. When I was up on Seymour looking at the devastation of the story poles there, I couldn't help but look across the highway south of the Ford dealership, and the story poles for that project are, I think, coming up on their 2-year anniversary. So they're the world champion story poles to have survived the storms of the last 3 months. Congratulations to whatever makes that possible.
Whatever award Greg Jameson gets for that, I'm not sure, but good for him. Commissioner Gordon. Commissioner Jonas. I just had just one comment, just for the record. We need in the staff report. We need to spell Naomi Patridge's name correctly. So as I think Mayor Emeritus, we should get her name right, and just want to make sure that's reflected in the minutes. And just thanks for everybody for pulling this together. In terms of meeting locations, I like this location. It's a lot more approachable and it's warmer. And it's accessible for the public, and we don't typically have as many attendees, but I'll let other people submit their feedback through email so we don't have any kind of issues from a Brown Act perspective. But
Thanks. Yeah.
Would we have issues if we run late? Yes, we wouldn't run late.
Well, I think we appreciate the feedback, and I think we can talk with staff and so forth and see if place that we encourage feedback. So feed us feedback from what you're looking at and seeing, and let us know so we can make it better. And then we'll take that into consideration with the rest of the group.
Great. Well, thank you, everybody. So I need to get the final motion of the evening.
I move that we adjourn.
Can I get a second?
I second it.
And can we get a roll call vote?
Yes, Commissioner Reddick.
Yes, please.
Commissioner Jonas.
Yes.
Commissioner Gorn.
Yes.
Vice Chair Gossett.
Yes.
And Chair Hernandez.
Aye.
Thank you, guys. Yeah.